People are showing up
live.
to the live
Going
show.
live.
Going live. Let's go live.
Go live.
We might as well go live. I mean, if we're gonna do this, we might as well go live.
Might as well
right?
go live.
Is that okay with everyone? I guess I didn't clear it,
Yeah.
but you know, might as well go live. Hello, and look at that, we're live.
Hello.
We got
Hey,
birthday
everyone.
boy Matthew Lang is here for another birthday
Happy
episode.
birthday.
Happy
Man,
birthday.
Matthew. Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, we're here. I see us
Happy
on the live.
Happy February, everyone. It's
Oh
February
God,
now.
it is February. Yeah, February 6th. Look at that. How time is flying. And speaking of flying, we got Will Smith flying into the frame.
Slowly
Yeah, he's
ascending.
He's literally growing.
Ascending, yeah. I'm on a lift. Hi,
Yeah.
everybody.
Hey, Will's here. Hello. We got Brad. We got Elena. We got Mike. We got a full house.
Full house.
We got,
Full
yeah,
house.
this is gonna be fun. We're here to talk about some fun stuff with some fun folks in the chat with CR Pole, Skeet Sayer, Clay, Davina, Tan May, Lewis Law. Look at all these names. I know these names. More people trickling in. We're gonna get rolling shortly. Just making sure everything's working fine. We were having a discussion earlier that we have 3 people at least here. Of the people here, me, Willis, you 4 on the screen. Half of us have been to a Buc-ee's, so I would consider that pretty cool, right?
Wait, which half?
I've never Buc-ee's.
Well,
I
yeah,
never have.
yeah, you never. But
What is this place? I don't even know it.
yeah, so I got my Buc-ee's shirt on. I got it during the holidays. I have lived in Texas actually multiple times in my life, but I'd never been to a Buc-ee's before, and I had no idea the glory that is walking into a Buc-ee's. Essentially, think of a cross between a gas station and a Walmart.
Oh,
But
Two of my favorite places.
yeah, 2 of my favorite places. But everything has this adorable little beaver on it, with the buck teeth, and yeah, literally like a wall of jerky, all with Bucky on it, and just different flavors. Merch up the wazoo. Believe me, I had to practice really good self-constraint to not walk out of there with too much Buc-ee's gear. And yeah, I feel a kinship because Bucky was born in 1982. I was also born in 1982, so
all
I
right.
feel like I've grown up with Bucky, even though I just
Wow.
yeah.
I thought I was older than you, but I am not.
Oh.
You look good for your age, Adam.
Oh, thank you. It's all the pills. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't know.
The good genes.
No,
The good
that's why, man. If I were to shave, you would think I was like in my 20s. Like I've always like
I believe it.
I've always tried to look older than I am, which is weird. Most people try to look younger, but yeah.
I think I've seen it once with you without
Wow.
a beard.
Yeah.
Just the one time.
Yeah. I do it
Very
every
rare
once in a
sight.
while, and my Lindsay's just like, no, don't do that.
It's like,
I'm
did you Benjamin Button yourself?
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I look like a little baby.
Baby.
Anyway, speaking of babies love PC hardware, and we're here to talk about PC hardware, right? Is
They
that
do love it. It's
Yeah.
their favorite thing.
Oh yeah. No, Will, you had a baby at one
Mine
point
used
in
to be
your-
a baby, but
yeah,
now she's like 10, 11, so it's not,
yeah.
I don't have to worry about her putting video cards in her mouth as much anymore as she used to.
See, I told you, babies love PC hardware. They just put it right in their mouth. Num num num. Has she been to a Buc-ee's? So I guess that's better.
No, I've never been to a Buc-ee's either.
Wait,
Like,
you've never
my-
been there?
No, my sister told me about Buc-ee's because they just got them in Tennessee. She was like, "This is this new thing opened. You got to see this when you come out next time." And I was like, "What is it?" And she's like, "It's like a really big convenience store with 100 gas pumps." I was like, "Well, I drive an electric car, so this is less interesting to me."
No.
They have chargers now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Also,
good.
it is. I didn't go there for the gas. I went there for the fun times. Also, I found out it's 24/7.
Did they have like water slides or something in there? Is it like good sandos or something? Like what's the draw?
Actually, yes. In the food area, they have like a little like main pit area. One side, at least the couple that I went to, one side, yeah, it was like a little circular thing in the middle. One side had them making fresh nuts, like almonds with the
like roasted?
Yeah, roasted
God.
almonds with the sugar mixture on top of it is just like, oh my god.
Okay.
And then on the other side, they're doing like brisket sandwiches, and they're cutting up the brisket right there. Like, I mean, it is
Damn.
yeah,
That
it
sounds
is
good.
it is an experience.
I gotta say, like, there's a place on 5 halfway between here and LA, San Francisco and LA, that they do these brisket sandwiches. It's right next to a Charger, and I'll walk over there and get a brisket sandwich, and it is pretty good. So I can get behind a truck stop brisket sandwich, basically.
Yeah.
You got to share that info.
I know, right?
I have a friend who drives up from LA sometimes. I think he'd be happy to know there's one right by a supercharger.
Yeah.
It's nice. at Harris Ranch. It's in the Shell station across from Harris Ranch.
Okay.
At it's by the place with the stinky cows.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. Just like a Buc-ee's. Just like a Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
Where's the nearest Buc-ee's to us?
Texas.
Like
I don't think it's any further west.
We have a Texan here with us. Like, what's the official Texan take on this?
I mean, I'm not going to claim to speak for 25 million people, but it's a big, rather nice gas station. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're not here to talk about Buc-ee's. We need to get started. No ad read, so I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go straight into it. If everyone's ready, thumbs up.
Do it.
Thumbs up on
I'm ready.
everyone's
I
end.
did-
There you go.
I did see somebody in the comments say Brad should shave his beard for a charity event, and that's never going to happen, just to make that clear.
What if we hit 1 million subscribers? Would you do it?
I could opt into it for that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't
Every
remember.
man has his price.
I don't remember what we agreed. I think we agreed Gordon was gonna like dress up as
Sailor
something.
Moon.
Sailor Moon
Sailor
for
Moon.
if when we hit
Sailor Moon
a
Gordon.
million subscribers. Yeah.
And I'd pay a lot of money
Gordon.
to see that. I
There we
really
go.
I would do the opposite. I would pay a lot of money not to see that.
So there you go. Then you better unsubscribe so we don't get there sooner rather than later. Anyway,
Done.
here we go. Here we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk GPUs, AM4, and custom keyboard deviants. Yeah. Welcome to episode 289 of The Full Nerd, PC's premier PC hardware podcast. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, and we got a full house of cool cats and kittens here today. We got my co-host, Brad Charkis. Hello, Brad.
Hello, welcome to Beard Fest, Joel.
Beard Fest. Also, you're rocking the Full Nerd shirt. It's technically a Christmas shirt, but I guess you celebrate Christmas all year round.
I'm festive 365 days a year, my man.
Brad Festive Charkis. We also have Elena Yee on the line. Hello, Elena.
Hello.
You're here to make sure that our commas are in the correct place while we talk, so I appreciate you.
I'll keep doing that until AI replaces me.
There you go. Mike Kreider, the person who speaks for Texas, I guess, is here. Hello, Mike.
Howdy. Welcome to Buc-ee's Talk Weekly.
For the pre-show, we were talking a lot about Buc-ee's. Speaking of Buc-ee's, Will Smith is here to talk.
I just want a brisket sandwich, Adam. I'm all tasted up for brisket now. It sounds real good. Put me some barbecue sauce on that, and maybe a little slaw. That sounds. Yeah. It's a good way to spend my morning.
We should order that for the next live build.
There you go.
We'll build a PC and eat some brisket. I have considered doing a Buc-ee's themed PC build, and now that I said it live, we have to do it.
Wait, how did that work though? Like, what's the tie-in for the theme here? Like, are you actually going to be running petrol through gasoline through the
You can get some water cooling that look like gas.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
We get the giant beaver, on the face.
I can cut you an acrylic beaver and put it on the window.
There we go. Yeah. See,
yeah.
There's ways to cut. I have so many ideas for theme builds this year. We got to start. But I do want to introduce running the verticals and horizontals. We got Willis Lai. Hello, Willis.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy February.
Happy Tuesday. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. I'm excited to announce that Will Smith is going to be joining us as a freelance video talent for the channel. Will, I'm glad you're officially part of the PCWorld team.
I am. It's funny. I spent the first 10 years of my career with PCWorld as a mortal enemy, so I'm glad to be here, guys. It's really exciting to finally join the PCWorld team, and I feel like the prophecy is fulfilled. The circle is closed, and Gordon would say something Star Warsy here. I think.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. Welcome to the dark side. There you go. Yeah. So he's going to be kind of like Keith, who does freelance video for the channel. He's going to be showing up in videos. Will is local though, so luckily we get to enjoy doing some local videos. I'm excited. So look forward to more Will on the YouTube channel. I'm excited. I do want to say this is not replacing Gordon. Gordon is still employed here. This is not, I want to get ahead of it just in case anybody's like, well, what the hell? Like Gordon is still, working on his treatments. I still text with him all the time. He's really excited to get back to it when he can. But yeah, so once Gordon does come back, that means we get a little reunion of sorts too. Some Will and Gordon videos.
Well, once Gordon comes back, I get fired into the sun, and I'll it'll work itself out. But yeah, I'm just Adam asked if I was available to help, and it turns out I'm a little bit more available right now than I usually am. So, happy to come in and help you guys out.
Yeah, I had some money in my hand. Yeah, I had some money in my hand, and I shook it at him and said, "Please, can I give this to you?" And he said, "Okay, sure."
My only requirement was that you have one of those fan booths, and you just, when I come in for a video, you put the money in there, and then it's whatever I can grab is what I get to take home, right?
Tornado money boost.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're agreeing to that, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be fun, right? Everybody loves that.
Yeah, right.
Have you guys tried that before?
No, I've never tried one. But yeah, maybe we need to figure that out. Wow. So anyway, Gordon's excited. I mean, Gordon knows this news. We've been chatting about it too. Obviously, you and Gordon go way back, so he's excited to do some stuff with you too when he can return. And yeah, all fun stuff. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. Oh yeah, and Boria Zero says now you're a PCWorld shill. So there you go. You're done.
I got to start buying merch. I'll get on it.
There you go.
We have nice shirts.
I know. That's what I heard.
Shirts. Not as good as Bucky's shirts, but that's
wow.
Okay. Also, we keep getting sidetracked. After last week's discussion, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, where we talked about having Bigger Bar Better as a shirt design. We are actively in the works of doing that. Some fine folks in Discord, thank you, tried to help us figure out the Latin phrasing. We got really hung up on bar. Because there's so many ways you can, say bar. There was like a word for like pillar or like, some sort of structure kind of thing. Yeah. But we realized like actually, if you think about it, it's more like bigger measurement better. So I can't remember the word. I don't know, Elena, if you have the words.
I think it's like I don't know how to say anything in Latin. So it's like major, melius, something. So
yeah, so bigger measurement better.
It's really great too because it's like alliterative. It's all M words, so it kind of flows really nicely. The editor and me was really happy about that.
So hopefully we'll have some Bigger Bar Better shirts coming in the future. Anyway, but also coming in the future is GPUs. So let's switch over to odd new GPUs. This is kind of a weird little topic, but there was a little smattering of GPUs that kind of caught my interest over the past week. I thought we'd talk about. Excuse me. The first up is NVIDIA has silently dropped a RTX 3050 6GB version. This is a card that kind of released with little fanfare. Brad, did you get an official briefing on this or anything?
Nope, I don't think anybody did. Nope, just woke up to the news one morning.
Woke up and there you go, a brand new GPU. So there are some reviews out there, some testing. Like I think I linked out to video cards. There's a link in the description, kind of talking about some testing that was done by Computer Base, kind of comparing it to a 3050 8GB version. And not only is it a drop by 2 gigs in VRAM, but it is actually a different die, less CUDA cores, less memory bandwidth, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is definitely a cut down 3050. This is not just a 3050 with 2 less gigs of VRAM. Brad, what's your take on this card? Who's this for?
My first off the cuff take is I hate the name. They shouldn't have called it a 3050 because it is very much not the 3050 that we already have had for 3 or 4 years now.
Yep.
But I can see why they called it that, because this is following in the legacy of the 750, the 1050, the 1650, where yes, the specs are cut down, but the big draw here is it doesn't need any external power connectors. So you can just slot this right into your PCIe slot. If you have a pre-built PC that comes with one of those janky, crappy, no-name power supplies that don't have any extra
the
connectors,
Gordon Special.
You could, yeah. Oh, don't derail me on that. But yeah, you can take this and just slap it right into your PC, and you could be playing games pretty quick. Hardware-wise, it has, I think, about 20% less CUDA cores and associated things than the stock 3050.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a much lower power draw. So this won't perform nearly as well as the base 3050. But for something you can just slap into any computer and start playing games, it supports DLSS, so that's great. It looks pretty compelling if you're one of those people who need a graphics card with no extra power connectors, because there's nothing else like that on the market right now.
Yeah, and it seems to be priced starting at $170 US, which is in line with the 1630, and the 1650 was a little cheaper because that was pre-pandemic prices. But I mean, it is more powerful than those cards. So
much.
Yeah. But obviously less powerful than a actual 3050. One of the cool designs, trying to think of some good takeaways from here. One of the cool designs, Mike, you wrote an article about a version that actually had a passive heatsink. Can you tell us more about that one?
It is the same card with a passive heatsink. That's all there is to it. It's exactly the same design. As far as I can tell, the same amount of power and capability with just a huge amount of passive cooling on there. The same company, Palette, made almost the same card for, I think, the 1650. It might even be the same cooler, with just maybe the die moved around a little bit.
Oh.
So if you want, if you're trying to build a fanless PC that can just, double as a radiator, or you want something that's much quieter and you also have very good airflow, it would be a good solution. I haven't seen anywhere that it's actually on sale yet, so I don't know what they're asking for it. Probably a little bit of a premium over the standard design, but it's pretty cool that they can do that with something that is as powerful as a 3050, or a little less, as it were.
Do we know if this has AV1 encoders on?
It does not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it won't, because AV1 encoder came to the 40 series, so it's not baked into that architecture.
Yeah. Okay.
But the cool thing about this is it is the first 50 class card to be RTX. So, this kind of card is already going to struggle with frame rates a bit, but a lot of games support DLSS now. And while DLSS doesn't look that great at 1080p resolution, if you just need faster frames, if you need more performance, this is the first sub $200 card to support it. So that's another perk.
So you can render it 720p and internally and get 1080p at a decent frame rate. That's kind of amazing for a sub $200 card.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of people are dumping on this card, but I think it has a lot of value for the people who need no power connectors.
Yeah,
it also supports NVIDIA broadcast and all that kind of stuff. Not that you would really be streaming on a 3050 cut down version like this, but if you're doing your work meetings and stuff, then you can use RTX broadcast. You can use NVIDIA Reflex, which personally I like more than DLSS. So, there's a lot of perks associated with this. That's the first time we've ever seen it in a 50 class.
It's a bummer because the what was it, the 2060? They did a late refresh 2060 that was an Ampere core, which was the same core as the 3000 series. So I was kind of hopeful when this dropped that it might be like ADAs that couldn't pass cert, and we'd get AV1 and all the kind of DLSS 3 stuff on with that. But it looks like this is the straight Ampere part, which is it's fine. Last time we got something kind of for free on the on the late model refreshes. So
Well, yeah, and
I think it's really hard for NVIDIA to get the cutting edge TSMC chips into sub $200. So I'm glad to see DLSS and RTX on an affordable option.
yeah.
well, and I was hoping for, I mean, even on NVIDIA's website, it says bring ray tracing AI powered RTX platform to even more gamers and creators. So they definitely call out the creation parts. That's why I was hoping maybe it would have some sort of AV1. But I mean, CUDA, you know, one of the spots when the A750, the A580 came out, I heard some people using it as a second add-in card to be able to, you know, like accelerate certain work programs. And I was like, okay, to a certain degree, like maybe that's a good spot for this as well, to, you know, be a second card in your work system to accelerate certain things. Yeah, I guess, that's what I would want to kind of bring it in and check it out.
I can see it being useful even in cheap work desktops, to be honest, because a lot of companies don't need pure GPU brunt, but being able to use DLSS and ray tracing and stuff in real time, even though it'll be slower than you would get on a 4080 or whatever, would be useful for a whole lot of applications. And there's plenty of creator, you know, notebooks out there that already have 3050s because they just need those features. They don't necessarily need the graphics horsepower.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Will? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine. I was going to say the same thing. I was like, look, there's GPU acceleration in Photoshop now, right? Photoshop and Premiere and your Creative Suite stuff that you benefit from having a dedicated GPU on. And this is like assuming the memories, there's enough memory to, I don't know what the low end looks like on those applications. And it'd be interesting to kind of explore.
Well, actually, I do have a test coming out soon to talk about creative stuff on GPUs. So yeah, we'll get to that at some point. Another, anything else on the 3050? Nothing. Okay.
Nope.
So another thing to kind of chat about what I thought was interesting. Speaking of palette, I linked to this in the description. There's a Tom's Hardware article that I linked to. Somebody tore down a palette version of an RTX 4080 Super that shows PCB traces for two 8-pin power connectors alongside the 16-pin 12-volt high power or 12-volt 2x6. The actual connector that's on board is the 12-volt 2x6. That's what they use, but the actual traces are there for two 8-pin, meaning that at some point it was spec'd out that way. But I mean, I think per official NVIDIA guidelines, like you have to have the 12-volt high power on specific models, right? You can't just be like, we're going to do either or.
I'm not sure if that's ever been said officially. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. At the very least, they strongly encourage it to their partners. But I'm not, you know, they could a card like that, they could have designed this like a generic-ish PCB to use with other graphics cards too, and just kept it for this. So there's all kinds of reasons they could have had that.
They also could have been designing this board when the 12 volt power connector was having the meltdown problems, and they were like, hey, let's hedge because we can decide which part to put on later. You know, in case this all blows up and there's strong negative, like having two 8-pins could be an advantage if things had gone worse with the 12 volt meltdowns last year.
Yeah,
very good point.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if I'm trying to read this article, but yeah, I'm curious to see if somebody can actually take those traces and solder on connections so that we actually see it running. I don't know what kind of engineering work that would take, but that'd be kind of interesting. The article. Go ahead. The article does point out that there are vendors like MaxSun that here. Quote, I'm quoting the article. However, vendors like MaxSun defy the requisite and use two 8-pin PCI power connectors on the brand's GeForce RTX 4070 Super iCraft. End quote. So yeah, there are certain vendors out there that will use the traditional 8-pin power connectors rather than the 12 volt.
I think it made sense when things were melting down and it was new, but I think those 16-pin connectors, the 12 2x6 or whatever it's called, get an unnecessary amount of hate. Like, they work just fine. You take these graphics cards, you plug them in, you put them in your PC, and you're not going to touch it for years. Like, It works just fine. I think people like, yes, 2x8 works, but they all come with adapters in the thing. So I do hate the official NVIDIA adapter because it's too short. You can't help but see this big, ugly, clunky thing coming out of your card if you care about cable management. But functionally, they work just fine. Like, people should not be clinging to 8 pins just because that's what it's always been.
I mean, we have somebody in the chat. Braden says, "I'm never touching a 12-volt high power card, honestly." So, yeah.
Well, but I mean, just to be clear, I mean, it was a bad design because people were able to insert it badly. But the problem wasn't a fault of the card. It was that people didn't get them all the way connected, and they had weak connections, and then that's what caused the heating issues, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's we've had plenty of debates about it around it. Is that a training thing? Obviously, it's a new connector. People just need to be kind of more understanding of how to use it. Or some people just say, "Oh, well, the connector should not have that bad of tolerances to begin with." I mean, I think there's valid, talking points on both sides. I mean, personally, I think there's also the talking point of the adapter kind of situation, because I know a lot of those situations where there was something that melted, it was from the adapters. Be it the ones including in boxes or third-party adapters like Cable Mod, right? So that's a whole other thing. I have used a lot of cards with the 12-volt high power connector, but I'm using an actual ATX 3.0 power supply. So I'm using a actual spec'd power supply as well, and I have never run into any problems. I know other GPU reviewers too that have said, "Hey, listen, we know it could potentially be a problem." But they, people who use a lot of the GPUs have also just never seen too much. So,
Well, I think that new 2v6 model has, they've had some slight engineering changes to make it so it locks in.
Yep.
So, and that's what really should have been there in the first place.
Also,
I put that issue with that. I think the connector was not properly designed to begin with, but I think they've cleared up those issues now.
Agreed.
I do also like that the Asus models, I can't remember the very first one I saw, but it has trickled down to all the models, or I believe it's all the models. I think JJ had said all the models that have 12-volt high power have a red LED indicator light to say if it's correctly plugged in or not, to be able to help with that. Obviously, MSI had the ones that we saw at Computex where the tips were yellow, so if any of it was kind of unseated, you could clearly see that it was not seated. So people have worked around it.
I mean, if they can put a light on, then they can do the thing that when external GPU power was new and you'd plug in your video card, if you didn't have the external power plugged in, it would either throw a giant error before the BIOS started on the screen that was like, "Yo, you didn't plug in your power, turn off the computer and plug this in." Or I think AMD would just make this horrific beeping noise.
Oh,
it would be like
really?
a loud piezo beeping that was just like
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
You're like, "Hey,
so,
you didn't insert it properly."
Yeah. There's better solutions. I like the light, but do something really obnoxious. Let people know they made a mistake.
Wait, are there even any speakers anymore on motherboards?
Well, you can put the piezo's are tiny. They're like the size of a dime, so they could put any. It would cost 3 cents though. So
I know, but I don't think that's on there right now. So
well,
you'd have to bring it back.
the headers on the motherboard specifically are there, and I know that because when we built Brad Shoemaker's box, he specifically wanted to plug in. He had these little speakers that he had bought. He sent me a link to it. To plug in the motherboard.
It's like some of them still carry over legacy stuff. I'm just saying it's not standardized. So I agree with Will that it should be a little bit more obvious, but I think we'd have to like bring back old tech for it to happen.
On the video cards that did that, I think the piezo was on the card itself. It wasn't on. It wasn't relying on the PC speaker. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. That's hilarious. Maybe it's a recording of Jensen saying, "Hey, plug it in better." That'd be hilarious. Anyway, we have one more quick little odd GPU kind of thing. We saw this at CES, the MSI 4080 Super Expert Edition. We kind of noted that was like one of the first cards in the Super lineup that actually had a new design and a new shroud to it. Really beautiful card, and friend Paul over at Paul's Hardware, he actually got it in to do some reviewing. I mean, the review is what you expect, for a third-party AIB versus the stock Founders Edition, but I just love that design. That is a beautiful design.
It's sexy.
Yeah. Will, have you got a chance to look at that MSI Expert?
I'm looking at it right now. It's a fancy lad.
Yeah,
it's a nice looking.
Yeah.
I don't know about the full shroud though.
Yeah, the shroud is like I actually don't think it's one piece that wraps around the whole thing, but it is seamless, at least to have the look of like one continuous shroud design across the whole card.
Pretty.
The flow it has the flow through design audio or fans, just like the Founders Edition, where a fan on each side to flow through the air. But it is a unique design for sure.
I'm old enough. I look at the shroud designs and I'm like, where's the dust going to get jammed in this thing that I'm going to have to blow out in 6 months? And that grate looks really pretty new, but in 6 months it's going to look like a dead cat in there. And I don't know. I'm a little worried about it. It seems like a dusting problem to me, Adam.
Yeah, maybe.
I like it. It's basically like a nicer looking Founders Edition, and Founders Edition cards, they go out of stock real quick. So I'm actually kind of glad, just for the functionality of the thing, I'm glad MSI put this out, because if you design like Falcon Northwest purposefully usually designs around Founders Edition because the way the airflow works. So to be able to have it from a third party is good, because NVIDIA does not put much out into the supply.
Yeah, no, I will say probably maybe one of the only downsides is that it is actually heavier than the Founders Edition card as well. Because it's a heavy GPU. So yeah, somebody in the chat said it's begging. Oh, here Liquidar, friend of the show, Liquidar says it's begging to be vertically mounted to show it off, and because it's probably really heavy. So
I didn't tweet much when I was at CES, one because I'm not on Twitter very much anymore these days. But that is the one thing that I tweeted out that week. I'm just like, God, this thing is beautiful.
Nice, I dig it. So yeah, it's just a little smattering of GPU news. I am still, we have the numbers finished for the 4070 Ti Super and the 4070 Super. Brad, I know you're working on a write-up for the website. I'm actually going to be making a video with Will soon to go over the testing numbers for the video side as well. So we'll get some of those numbers up. And I do have, I think Gigabyte is sending me a 4070 Super as well, so I'll have a AIB version of that on hand to poke around, and maybe I'll bug MSI for one of these expert cards. I would love to try to get my hands on that.
Is this the end of video card month? It seems like it's been nothing nonstop GPUs since CES.
Well, I haven't tested the 7600 XT yet either, so I need to start working on that. But yeah, I'm a little
Thanks
late
for
to
doing
it.
my work, Adam.
No. So there's stuff going on, but in terms of releases, we actually did a couple videos with at the show floor. One of them being with a friend of the show over at Tom's Hardware. Jared, yes, thank you, Jared Walton, talking about hey, this is probably the last new video cards we're going to see until at least Computex. I can't imagine another release hitting before then. So, who knows what we'll see at Computex? Maybe 5000 series, maybe something on Battle Mage. Who knows? But at least at this point, these are the cards, for the next number of months that are going to be available on shelves. So
good. I need a break.
Yeah, there you go. We all need breaks. You know what else needs a break is AM4. That thing, that thing has been working hard for many, many years. And we were talking before the show. I remember when the 5800 X3D came out, Gordon and I kind of sat down to plan out a video on that. And there was, of course, the testing that he had done. He was actually late on it. So instead of just doing a straight review, I was like, we were kind of like, hey, maybe we make this more like a piece of like, the final send off for AM4. And if you go back and watch that video now, it was him. He did some testing with an 1800X, a 3800X, and a 5800X 3D, or all the way into 2700X, I think, I can't remember. Anyway. Essentially the video, if you go back and watch it now, the wording was like, oh yeah, this is the final send-off of AM4 and look at all these great times we had, and then all of a sudden AMD continues to release AM4 based CPUs.
I'm not dead.
Yeah, I'm not dead yet.
Still strong.
Yeah.
Still strong.
So yeah, it's merely a flesh wound. AM4. We got the recent release of the 5700 X3D. A couple good videos. I watched Steve over at Gamers Nexus, and also a review video on Hardware Unboxed. A 5700 X3D kind of does sit between a 5600 X3D, which was unfortunately Micro Center only, and then a 5800 X3D. You're getting way close to the performance of a 5800 X3D, but at pricing that is lower depending on what kind of deals that are found there. So yeah, it is an impressive little part. Anyone have excited thoughts about the 5700 X3D?
I mean, if Gordon were here, we would probably have a very long conversation about why I'm still recommending AM4 systems to people. But to me, honestly, for that price, what's the MSRP, like 250, 260?
No,
260.
260. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's already like $30 cheaper than what we've seen for the 5800 X3D. And honestly, most people who are doing gaming only don't really need like the full power of a 5800 X3D. So I mean, you shave off another $30 or so. I mean, you can put that towards a nicer motherboard. You can upgrade your RAM, like maybe get a slightly nicer version of the graphics card that you want. You can have yourself a real nice system. And looking at those performance numbers, like I really don't think you're going to miss that much, because at least in the games they were testing, you're getting pretty high frame rates already. So unless you're running a really high refresh monitor, you're not really going to miss those frames. I love it. I actually, when I did the write-up for PCWorld based on Gordon's testing for like looking over all the generations of AM4, I think the headline was something like, it bookends this era. So like we thought at that time it was over.
Really
and
did.
I'm actually really happy that my favorite band's like, no, we actually didn't disband. We're gonna have like a little intimate reunion tour here and there. So if you happen to be in, I don't know, Fresno, California, we're here hanging out. Come join us. I mean, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Every once in a while, I'll look around at
Get in the car, everybody.
concerts that are happening in the Bay Area, and I'm like, oh, Def Leppard is still playing. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Keep going, I guess.
I'm down with it.
Correction, it is 250 is the MSRP. Oh. So I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll see
like
pricing
right around that. That's even better. $40.
And this is not limited.
RGB RAM.
Yeah, and this is not limited to Micro Center. This is a wide distribution. I did have a good chat with AMD at CES. Crap, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry. But one of the things I was asking, and I've always kind of asked AMD, is like, hey, does releasing new CPUs on AM4 and giving people good options to either upgrade or buy into AM4, is that like essentially taking the knees out of AM5? And AMD positioning has always been like, hey, we just want the right hardware for the right person. And yeah, there are a lot of people who can get AM4 based systems, whether they're upgrading, maybe they bought in early to AM4, then they can kind of in place upgrade, or buy AM4. I do actually believe there are reasons to buy AM4 brand new right now, but at the same time, I mean, there is potential to get into AM5. And sure, total platform cost with the motherboard and the RAM, DDR5, is going to be a little bit higher. You do future-proof yourself. But at the same time, I mean, if a lot of people buy a CPU, motherboard, and RAM combo and aren't going to do any sort of upgrading and just say, hey, by the next time I'm going to upgrade my CPU and motherboard, I'm going to upgrade the whole thing anyway.
Might be AM6.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's opportunity there for sure.
The other thing it does is it keeps that generation alive. So, like, if you look what happens with Intel as they get, the old stuff goes away, the prices dip for a little bit, and then after a while, you reach a point where people have have those machines and their CPU dies, they need to replace the hardware, and then the CPU prices start going back up again for those old sockets. And like by dumping a new part out a year after the last one landed, AMD is basically saying, yo, we don't want that to happen. We want the price for these motherboards to continue being, $200, $250, $300, whatever, which is fantastic for people who have AM4 boards and want to continue having upgrade path out of them. I love this. This is fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see. I'll just say real quick, it's really cool to see that AMD has made good on what it said, that it was going to keep supporting AM4, because a lot of times companies say that, and resources are limited, things happen, and usually there's just kind of this like drop off, and you never kind of see much from that again. And no, like, was it 2 years later? Almost a year and a half we're seeing for that come to a bit fruition there.
Yeah, and I did ask AMD in that interview at CES, like, hey, what is the point when you're done with AM4? How do you know when you're done? And at least in the interview, they indicated that it was DDR4 pricing. Right now, DDR4 pricing is still it's still at a good spot. It's still readily available in a lot of situations. It's cheaper than DDR5. Also, I mean, maybe you still have some sticks that you bought early on, and it's still doing well for you, and that at that point, when the total platform cost of AM4 is probably more than it is to get it on AM5, then that's probably when they'll be like, oh, okay, we're probably done releasing new stuff. But I mean, yeah.
I think it's interesting having this and the new 3050 on the same show, because I think it kind of shows, like I was saying earlier, cutting edge chips are so expensive. Like, people overlook the fact that TSMC's profit has jumped like 30% over the last 2 years. They're charging way more money to the chip makers to make these chips. So I think this is kind of the norm of what we're going to see going forward. The budget options are going to be variants from last gen technology that are still good, but they are able to be made now at a price that you can offer that you can't do with the latest and greatest. So I think we're seeing that with the 3050. I think we're seeing it with this. I think Intel's its own beast because they make their own chips, but I think this is going to probably be the new norm going forward.
Well, and as much as we love talking about the latest and greatest features, and yeah, of course, if Gordon were here, he'd probably be poo-pooing on AM4 all day and night, and be like, why would you buy into an old platform? Don't want to speak for him, but that's, if I had to guess.
You had to guess.
Yeah. But man, I lost my train of thought thinking about Gordon. He's just so distracting like that. Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say, but I do like that it is an option, and I do, I actually don't think the investment cost in an AM5 is like that much more, especially when you think about what you could get in return. But if you're like, hey, you know what? I see the performance of 5800 X3D or 5700 X3D. I just want to buy that because I know what it is. There are a ton of options out there. It is stable, and it can run all day and night for the thing that I want to do with it. Go for it. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, we love the latest and greatest stuff, of course, but like there are plenty of people who don't need the latest and greatest, and something like this can completely do fine for a long time. Somebody in the chat, sorry, I saw it breeze by here. Somebody had said like, oh hey, they're probably just going to skip AM5 altogether because AM4 is just so good for their use cases. So yeah, I dig it. Yeah,
it's not the latest and greatest, and it's damn good. And I am encouraged finally between cards like this new 3050. And we have the ARC A750 for under $200 you can get now. Now, this is a very good CPU for $250, the 5700X 3D. We are finally back where you could get a really, really good gaming PC for under $700, maybe even $600 if you cut some corners. And it's been a long time since we could say that, so I'm pumped about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hope it lasts for a little bit, though, because, there's been all these rumblings on the horizon about RAM going up, SSDs going up. So
yeah, buy those now if you're looking to.
Yeah. But is the RAM specifically over DDR5, or do you think it's going to hit DDR4 as well?
It's just NAND chips in general.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, Crazy. All right, yeah. AM4, it continues to keep going. I do wonder, last question I have here, I do wonder, is AM5 going to have this kind of longevity as AM4? Do we think AM5 is, because officially they've said, I think through 2025 support for that socket?
That's the official number so far, yeah.
But that's next year. So like we're rapidly approaching it.
At this point, though, I feel like it's too hard to follow up immediately on this. You know what I mean? Like someone else in the chat, I'm sorry, I lost the name as well, said something about how like this, like AM4 is the GOAT. Like it's just like at this point, who's going to compare? Like how are they going to compare to this? Like they would have to exactly replicate this kind of experience, and I feel like that's a really hard act to follow.
Right.
And honestly, if I were AMD, and I've said this before in the past about I've said in the past that I want to see a follow-up on this, but realistically, if you set people's expectations a little too high, you kind of get yourself shoehorned into a thing that everyone's going to expect. And so I could actually see them purposely not doing this just so that people don't always expect it out of them. So that way they have more room in the future to be like, okay, like this one, we want to, kind of cut off a little earlier, but this one's working out well, so we'll hang on to it. I don't know. I think it's a really hard act to follow.
I mean, I don't think we should expect 7 years, right? That's what we're at on AM4.
Yeah.
Like that seems
Oh, wow.
6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, 2017, wasn't it? Right? Yeah.
Oh, it was.
That was the first AM4.
Yeah. So to me, 7 years feels like like we're lucky we got this far, right? We should expect. I think as long as we're seeing multiple generations in one socket, I'm going to continue being happy. And if we make it all the way through DDR5 on AM5, that sounds that's then consider ourselves blessed.
Yeah, but to your point, Elena, I do wonder: is this AMD's 1080 Ti? Or are they always going to look back and be like, oh man, nothing was ever that good as back in the day, back in 1080 Ti, that was awesome. Oh man,
we are squeezing in all the controversial comments that we know we can get away with when Gordon.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if AMD didn't even plan for this lasting this long. Like I think these chips that we're seeing coming out now are a product of the weirdness of the last few years, and I wouldn't be surprised if they take a similar approach whenever they do switch to AM6. But yeah, like Will said, I don't think you can ever expect 7 years. I don't think AMD expected it to be.
Yeah, I mean, DDR5 was definitely delayed because of pandemic stuff, and that pushed. I'm sure that pushed all of the slots back, and we saw it in an Intel side too, with the 12th, 13th, 14th generation all being surprisingly similar. Let's say. Yeah, so I think we're in the same boat on AMD.
Yeah, we got a couple people in the chat. Tan Mei says 4 years is fine if you can get a significant uplift. Who is this? 5 to 6 years is good enough. Yeah, I'm curious
I think
to
even
see.
That's
what
pretty
people
optimistic.
Think,
I honestly think going by years is a bit I don't want to say disingenuous, but I think it misses the point. I think the fact that we got 4 generations out of a single socket is really what makes this so special. And the fact that this final generation is still having chips produced for it way beyond what we would normally expect out of the window for a given generation is what makes this so special. So like we could see 3 generations in a shorter amount of years, or even if they were to go that far, 4 generations in a shorter amount of years, because they hopefully knock on all the wood in the world, no more pandemics for a while, disrupting everything. So to me, it's the amount of generations we've gotten out of one socket and how long even the last one's kind of still breathing, still having its final, time on Earth is the most impressive part. Because like we've talked about before, like how Intel is like, yeah, technically this is 3 generations in one socket, and we're like, and I think that's what is the defining factor is for what makes this, wow, greatest of all time status.
Well, we do have an interesting question. Satnav, friend of the show, Satnav says, would the AMD approach create more or less e-waste than other brands? I mean,
I think that the amount of people in the market who are upgrading CPUs inside the same PC is probably small enough that it's going to be negligible across the broader market, unfortunately.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
and-
most people, myself included, like I don't once I build a machine, the CPU that's in it is the CPU that's going to be in it when it goes to e-waste. And I might change graphics cards and storage and all the other stuff, but I think that's pretty. I think I'm at the high end of upgradability on the broader market, unfortunately.
yeah. And then
One thing that's worth noting real quick that I meant to bring up earlier is talking about longevity of AM5. One of the initial issues with AM4 was there's like a memory chip in the board that holds all the different, the chips SKUs in support for them. And one of the big issues early is they just released too many CPUs and they didn't have enough space on that chip. AM5, they either doubled or tripled the size of memory on that chip. So they at least set the base to be able to upgrade for a good long time with that.
Yeah.
Also, another good question. Friend of the show, Ivan, over on Discord asked, why is AM4 praised for its longevity, but ATX should go? Once again, another question for Gordon.
Wow.
I would say, though, I mean, we're talking about, 6-7 years versus 20 plus years. Yeah.
But Adam, your next machine is going to be BTX machine for sure. I know you're going to.
I wish
you get that central shoot going.
See, it is the trend lately to do sleeper PCs, right? But usually they're not in BTX systems. So yeah. Not a follow up, but second part of the question: isn't it great to have a motherboard that can fit into a 20-year-old PC case? I mean, it is, and it isn't. I mean, yeah, we've had this debate plenty of times. Good question for sure. But yeah, I think it's more like AM4 isn't holding that platform back because now we have AM5 and that's a viable option, where ATX, Gordon would argue it's that specification is holding us back from being able to grow into something else. So yeah.
Good way to sum it up. That was
right.
perfect.
Yeah. In less words and probably less ranting than Gordon can do. But yeah.
It wouldn't be the same without Gordon's rants.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Let's move on to our third topic. AM4. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the last chips. Maybe we'll have another topic coming later about it. But the last topic is about keyboard. Let me use the right word. Deviance.
Perverts.
No.
No.
Let's
Brad, trying so hard.
We just
messed it
lost
up
all
right
our
away.
sponsorships.
Wow.
That's it. All over.
Demonetized instantly.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Oh, you were going to sponsor the show? Oh, no, but because Brad just said pervert. Ah, dang it. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Here we go again. But Gordon can get away with that stuff. is the thing.
So we're going to call them deviants, freaks. I don't know. This all started because Will was like, oh, hey, you're using a fancy weird keyboard. You were talking about some drop stuff. I feel like we're all in different spots when it comes to keyboards. So maybe first let's go around and just kind of describe where we're at with keyboards. Brad, start with you because I actually don't know what are your thoughts on keyboards and where you sit in the deviant spectrum.
I've obviously always used gaming keyboards. I have been a long-term user of the Razer Black Widow with blue switches because, I'm a journalist. I like the click-clacky sound. But Mike recently sent me the Keychron Q, I believe it is, Mike?
Q5, I think, is the model I sent you.
Q5, and that, ooh, baby. Go buy one of those. They're very, very nice. Turned me into a keyboard pervert.
Okay.
Oh
man.
Into this world.
Yeah, he's just digging the hole. Elena, please share with the fine folks where you sit on the deviant spectrum.
I'm probably very not deviant because I am still rocking. I went back to my Gold Touch keyboard, which is just plastic and rubber dome switches.
Rubber dome.
The reason why is because Kreider very nicely asked me to review one of the Keychron ergonomic keyboards, and it's amazing. I love that. Like, if the switches feel so good. The problem is I have a walking treadmill, and every time I'm on that treadmill, I get shocked using that keyboard. I'm like, that.
no.
So I had to switch. I actually started getting worried about the keyboard because I was actually working through the static electricity shocks because I'm like, it's beautiful. I'm gonna keep using this, and then it started to get to a point where like half the keyboard's lights would go out. I'm like, like I don't want to short out this keyboard. It's too nice. So I switched off of it.
It's probably something bigger you might need to address at some point rather than later, but okay. I would call you a deviant in a certain ways because you do like split keyboard designs. You do like more ergonomical keyboards traditionally.
Yeah,
right?
but that's not deviancy.
Well, I would say that's different than a normal just flat boring keyboard.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
Good finger health is not deviancy, Adam.
True.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be the norm. Yeah,
exactly.
Will, I'm going to go to you next. What is your spot on the spectrum?
Yeah, so I switched to mechanicals like 10 years ago now, with some of the early kit ones, and then Logitech sent me their first wave of mechanicals to kind of get feedback. And I was like, oh, these are pretty good. These are nice gaming keyboards. And then a few years ago, I bought a drop control, which is like their 10 keyless hot swappable switches, the whole thing. And then my wrist started hurting again because I was doing more writing. So I backed the Keyboardio Model 100 Kickstarter a few years ago. And I got that. It's a columnar, meaning all the keys are aligned in columns, split ergo. And I couldn't use it. I was incapable of typing on it. So I put it in the box and I left it over there. And now that I have a little more free time for the next little bit, I took it out last week and I started learning to use it again. And I've had to like go essentially back to typing school because it turns out I was using the wrong fingers for all the YHNs, TGBs. I thought I was a touch typer and I was cheating my entire life. And I'm back up to like 50 words a minute now with this thing after about a week and a half. But it has been incredibly challenging going from a thing that I don't have to think about and it just feels like an extension of my brain to having to think about how to make words on the screen again. But like my hands are happier, I guess. I don't know.
Words suck.
Yeah.
Is that still a QWERTY layout, but just like slightly like shifted around a bit?
It's programmable. Here, I'll hold it up so you can see. It's going to be upside down, but so yeah, it's QWERTY layout. You can program it. I mean, you can do Comac or Dvorak or whatever you want. Okay. And everything's programmable. You can do layers like you can on like programmer keyboards. So there's this palm switch that you hit, and it shifts either down a layer, down two layers, or locks between layers. So for example, my space button, all the function keys are on your thumb instead of on your pinky and kind of underneath where they're hard to access. So like I have Control, Space, Shift, and Alt on my left thumb, and I can switch back and forth between them to do those. But when I hit the function key and hit space, then it becomes the enter key. When I hit the function key and hit backspace, it becomes the delete key, stuff like that. So it's real weird. It's required a fairly significant, like my brain plasticity is not where I wanted it to be for this. But I'm getting there. And I ended up like making a custom layer for games so that it just rebinds the home keys to be ASDW, so I don't have to rebind every game. So stuff like that. It's been a fascinating learning experience, though. I didn't think it was going to be quite this hard.
Nice. Well, to keep going around the horn, I think Mike Kreider, you might be the only one out of all six of us who have built your own keyboard. So, right?
Yes, I've built several keyboards. I haven't been able to do it for a while because one of my primary functions on PCWorld is I'm the keyboard reviewer guy. So I'm just always like, I think, 100% of the time last year, sitting working on my day-to-day new stuff, I had a new keyboard every 2 to 3 weeks. That's just how it is for me. So I can't tell you what I'm using right now just because that's constantly shifting. But the last thing I bought for myself was the White Fox Eclipse, which is an evolved version of a very popular custom keyboard from like, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, the original White Fox. Somebody finally put out a wireless version, and it's got all the fancy new new stuff. It's got RGB built in. It lets you swap out the switches, et cetera, et cetera. The coolest thing I like about it is that if you like to customize the interior of your keyboard with different kind of foams or something like a tape mod, and I'll see if I can do this right on the first time. It might just fall apart in my hand, so be forewarned. You don't need to take apart the case. You can just sort of, there we go.
Oh,
Pull it out with your
that's
hand.
awesome.
Oh.
It just sits in there
That's cool.
magnetically.
Nice.
And I'd pull it out fully, but that would mean taking the battery out.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Oh, there we
So
go.
that's it. It's
That's
open. It's
rad.
ready to modify.
Well, okay. So follow-up question. Wait. So has anybody else here built their own keyboard? Oh, you have. Oh, okay. So the second question: Have you lubed your own switches? Well,
I don't. The switch lubing is complicated, and the lubes are almost all really environmentally disastrous. So I don't switch lube.
Mike, have you lubed switches?
I haven't done the individual switches. I've put just a little bit of grease on the stabilizers because that's what's going to like rattle the most for your long keys.
Okay.
And that's fairly easy to do if you're already building everything.
Okay. Well, not to spoil anything, but knowing Willis and I, who's left to talk about it, you're probably the most deviant of all of us then on the spectrum. So
Well, there's
I've been
two of
called
us and fewer of you guys, so maybe you're the deviants and we're the normies.
oh, that's true. That's true. I'll say on my end, I have definitely. I've talked about this before, but I feel like I've been right at the edge of the cliff, looking down over at the custom keyboard stuff, and I'm like, should I jump? I feel like I've been here for a bit, looking down at all those freaks over there, and I'm like, man, should I do this? I don't know yet. I haven't fully made the jump, but I have done a couple of videos with Hippotech. Go subscribe over there on their YouTube. Awesome stuff that they do for custom keyboard stuff, and we've done a couple videos together, and I actually did assemble a keyboard with him at a live stream event late last year, which was fun. So I've dabbled a little bit, and then I'm currently using the 8-bit do mechanical keyboard, which is it's my first custom mechanical keyboard. I mean, I haven't done any modifications to it, but in the past I've always just used gaming keyboards, which I would consider not custom because the 8-bit do one can be customized, if that makes sense. I don't. Maybe I have those.
You can change switches in it, right? It's hot swappable, I think.
Yeah. So that's how I'm making that delineation between just a standard mechanical keyboard and a custom mechanical keyboard, even though I haven't built that one. So I'm touching. Also, I will say at CES, the folks over at Cyberpower PC gave us. We walked away with their custom mechanical keyboard. Oh man, I don't remember the actual.
The Keeb.
Is it called the Keeb?
No, I don't think
so?
it's called the Keeb. It's CK60B. Is the number?
Keeb is better.
It's a 60% keyboard. Which I sat down. Both Willis and I had this problem because he got one as well. I plugged it in. I sat down and I went to go use the arrow keys, and I was like, this thing's got no arrow keys. What the hell? Who the hell
Yeah, I
can
don't like
use?
60%.
Who can use a keyboard with no
There's-
arrow keys? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's
Nope.
somebody in our Discord server who uses a 40% keyboard.
I don't know
like,
what that
"Yo,
means.
Dude,
What does that
means
mean?
you
It has
have
no keys?
You have no keys.
Is it just WASD?
It's WASD in layers, right? Like you have layers all the way down that like you just
Yes,
keep mashing
it's-
buttons.
It's really complicated
can't.
layers. I can't go down to 40. The one that I built for my travel stuff that's sort of silent is my Star Trek board.
Oh, yeah, you
Ooh.
showed this off.
Over here on this side, it does have arrow keys. They're all straight,
Yeah.
but it takes very little time to adjust to it. So this is 60%. It's relatively small, but I did have to keep my arrow keys.
Okay.
The Elkhart
And that's
colors is-
that's one of the nice things
Oh.
about building on your own PCB.
Yeah.
You have to solder it.
Adam's
because
like
the hot swaps don't come
teetering
like that.
on the edge now. He's just like leaning into the abyss.
But I mean, for me, the ability to have switches that feel good under your fingers and then also not make sound. Like I swap out usually I buy whatever the hotness is in silent switches when I get a new keyboard. For a long time, it was silent boba tactiles, which were like, I think they took a stem from one switch and the top from another, and people did some crazy wizardry with that. Then you'd buy these kind of weird aftermarket switches. The nice thing is in the last like 3 years, even the number of switches being made by all the mainline. It's not like I have to order weird packages from AliExpress anymore to get the good switches I want. Now you can just literally go to any of the dozen stores and get something that is going to be pretty much exactly what you want.
All right. Before I get into my next segment, Willis, please chime in. Where do you sit in your deviant nature?
At work here, we're still rocking a what was it, the Apple aluminum soft keyboard.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's like pure silent.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of want that for production
I'm
over here.
show it to you. Yeah, still at the desk. Just But no, at home I use a full size mechanical keyboard because I like you said, I need my arrow keys, I need the number pad, the numpads and everything. It's just easier on the edits.
And you've never built your own?
No.
And would you ever want to build your own?
I want to try.
You want to try? Okay. So
I've always wanted to. Like I've been like you on the edge of that cliff, looking down, being like, should I take the jump? But the problem is, everyone I know who has done that gets really into it. I mean, you two guys are examples. Jared Newman, who writes for us, is hardcore off the deep end. And I'm already weird about monitors, and that's expensive enough. So I just can't add another pricey, nerdy hobby. Yeah.
Seriously, it's so expensive. I mean, it's like easily like $300 or $400.
Dude,
and I'm like, once the bug bites, it's like, oh no.
I've had people.
You can build one for under $100, but yes, it's easy to go up to like. Well, I think the last time I counted on that one, I put like $500 worth of parts into it.
Oh,
yeah. And I feel like I've had a lot of people get angry at me because I'm like I got in the Scuf Envision Pro. It's like almost $200 controller, and it was like, why would you pay $200 for a controller? And I'm like, what? That's cheaper than the keyboard that Mike just built. Also, I feel like, I feel that I know too many people who are like, ooh, I just built a new keyboard. What are you doing with it? Oh, I hang it on the wall back there.
It's like us and building PCs, right? Where we're like, this one's for the living room. This one's for Mondays. This one's for the weekend. This is for my guests. This one,
in the guest room, one in the garage.
Now, deep from my pro consumer heart, I have to point out there are tons of great keyboards for way less than you think. There's ones for less than 100. If you go to our roundups, we always have an excellent budget pick. There's one by G-Skill. I think it's the KM250 that's been our go-to pick for almost a year now. It's fantastic. But I want to ask you, Adam and Elena, because I know both of you have had a chance to check out that 8BitDo board. And the most interesting thing from a design aspect, aside from that it just looks fun, is that it comes with these giant like Staples easy buttons. These big mash down A and B ones. What do you use those for? I want to know.
Well, for me, my wife immediately stole it and was like, "Oh, I love these buttons." She's a preschool teacher and a nanny, and she's like, "I'm gonna have fun with the kids." So I actually don't have it hooked up. I wish I did, but if I did,
great story.
If I could, I would. I haven't used the configurability of it, but I would love to. If I'm thinking of two big red buttons that I could do something to. This is another side tangent, but I don't know if you guys saw the Evangelion power button. So like I would love to just have a big button that I could hit to turn off my computer. That would be hilarious. End of day, hit the big red button.
Nothing could possibly go wrong with that when you're in a live situation.
You have to come up with like a complex system of like Morse code in order for it to actually work, so you don't accidentally just hit it once.
Well, that's why I like the Evangelion one because it has a little flip cover. You can, it's like a real self-destruct button. You have to flip it open. Anyway.
Don't tell your cats that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Elena, have you? Yeah. But you're not currently using it.
Disappointing too. Right? Mike's gonna be so disappointed because I looked at it. I was like, I just want to display this. I don't want to use it.
Ooh,
however, like Adam, if I had to come up with a use for it, there's been, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. I don't know if it's 2024 or my brain is just like having problems where it's just stuck in a loop. But every time we've had this show the last few weeks, I always have moments where I'm like, this would be a perfect point in the show just to like use a soundboard clip where I insert the sound of the grunt birthday party like head explosion. Yay! Yeah. And I think if I could figure it out, I would just program those two buttons to just be, one would be the birthday grunt skull sound, and then the other TBD. But those would just be like my signature like insertions into an audio podcast.
Friend of the show, Bob Jones in the chat says John Cena horn. There you go. That would be fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, fun stuff. Okay. To get to some serious questions though, for me. There's a different, when we're talking about custom mechanical keyboards, right? There's obviously the mechanical keyboards from gaming companies. We've all used that. I feel like a lot of people in the chat probably use that as well. But getting into the custom mechanical thing, I see, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I see two paths. One of them is like a pre-built kind of thing, like the 8-bit do, the one that you had mentioned. I can't remember the company. I mean, yeah, you can.
Kisco?
Yeah,
there's
right,
a bunch of
all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Or you can build your own. Is it the same kind of debate that a lot of people have in the PC building community of pre-built versus DIY? Because I feel like that gets toxic a lot. People are like, pre-builts, what the hell? What would you build it yourself? Is it the same in the keyboard space?
I mean, people have strong feelings in all of these spaces where they have hobbies that they spend a lot of money. Like the thing is, if you can build a keyboard relatively inexpensively, unless you're really pretty good at soldering. Like in my experience, you're probably better off buying like a $50 hot swappable switch keyboard to start out. Like you're jumping into the deep end there. You want to jump into the shallow end, and then kind of just keep walking gradually down the depth of the pool until you get to the depth that you're comfortable with, and that's where you stop, and hopefully it's before your wallet is completely emptied and your wall is filled with a bunch of keyboards that you never use. So yeah, I don't think there's any shame in building versus, like, I use a keyboard that I bought and didn't build. The one that I built is over in a box in the garage someplace because it frankly was a little janky. So
Mike, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. I think if you're interested in this, the way to go is a cheap keyboard with hot swappable switches, and then buy that, and then buy what they call a switch tester. You can go on Amazon and find dozens of different ones, and each one will come with anywhere from like 9 to 50 different individual switches, and just sit there and play with it. See which ones you like. Find one that you like and order switches to replace them. That's a great like weekend project, just to get your feet wet and have fun with it and go from there. And I think the biggest differentiator between now and like 6-7 years ago is the hot swap. Because before that, you had to have basic soldering skills, and now you don't, and that's great.
Well, buy a good switch puller, a metal one.
Oh yeah,
thank yourself.
Well, see, and I think that's the other part I have problems with is that building a PC, I can go online, I can look at reviews, I can look at bar charts, and I'm like, okay, this performs better than this. I can look at aesthetics of a build. I can pretty much understand what the build's going to be like before I even get any parts in. Davina, friend of the show, Davina says in chat here, keyboards are really subjective, and that's the other problem. I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea unless I buy like a tester to actually feel them, but that's also not talking about like the dampening foam underneath or like the like all the other kind of stuff that goes into it. It's just like, well, crap. I mean, sure, I can buy one and then maybe tinker around with the switches, but how am I going to know the difference between the different dampeners and mods? And when I talked to Hippiotech about this, he was like, "Oh yeah, just experiment. Just try maybe wrapping something with duct tape, and see how that goes." And I'm just like, yeah, I guess, but What if I ruin it and I don't want to go back? Then I'm I don't know. It's just
the one thing about this that I think people don't maybe understand is that the keyboards typically hold their values pretty well because they're not generally, especially when you get into the specialty end, they're not mass produced. They're produced in batches. So like when, for example, there's often like drop keycap runs where they'll make a few thousand of those sets, and then once those are gone from the store, you can only buy them on aftermarket, or wait until they do another run, which could be never, it could be a year, it could be 3 weeks, whatever. So you can often, like, I've sold one of the early keyboards I bought for more than I paid for it. which never happens on PC hardware, right? That's shocking.
Wow. Wait, specifically because it had keycaps that were rare?
It had switches and keycaps that were hard to get at the time. Yeah.
So it's an investment. That's what you're telling me.
No, it's not. Look, we're not talking about Lego here.
Adam's already formulating his pitch to Lindsay.
Yeah. But the other thing is,
Will says I could make a lot of money off this.
No, Lindsay, don't listen. No,
there's got to be people out there who are buying, especially the keycaps, because they can be so limited, who are buying those specifically to resell. I'm sure there's some people that do that.
It's like sneakers. It's bad people do that.
Friend of the show, Ruru 2 says, so keyboard is the new crypto? There we go.
No.
Oh, God.
No. Don't put that.
It hurts my soul so much.
But also you can get, let's say, I don't want to say bootleg, but maybe key switches of questionable provenance on sites like AliExpress. If you don't mind waiting a couple of months for shipping, you can get a bag of switches that are indistinguishable from the regular ones for like a third the price, quarter the price usually. So I think that would be a fun video, would be to get those and compare them with the real ones at some point, maybe, perhaps.
The shipping's actually gotten better too. Like when I've ordered lately, it's like a couple of weeks, sometimes less than a month, sometimes depending which shipping option you choose.
And I think you don't even need to go I think the word we're avoiding is bootleg, because whatever happens to be like the trend in switches this year for the super expensive ones that might be like $1 for a single switch, that's going to trickle down into other manufacturers. It'll start with the super boutique stuff, and then in a few months, either Gateron or Kale will make their own version with very much the same design, because it's all based off of this 40-year-old thing that's out of patent, and anybody can do what they want. So if you see something that's really cool and you say, hey, I can't afford that right now, check back in 3 months, check back in 6 months. Someone will have an almost identical switch that you can get for a third the price.
Okay, here's the other thing. Getting into any sort of enthusiast thing, sometimes there's a barrier for new people. Same thing with PC building, where you're like, okay, maybe I want to build my first PC, and you go watch, Steve makes great videos over at Gamers Nexus, but sometimes I watch it. I've been in this space for a bit, and I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? I have no idea, right? Getting into understanding the terms and what all that means can be daunting. And Satnav put it in the channel right here, double caramel topped apple crisp blueberry switches. And I'm like,
some of those names, yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea what the hell you just said, and that can be daunting sometimes.
The Switch names are made by the same people who make YouTube slime videos, so it's.
I think one of our best picks in the keyboard roundup right now comes from a company that had pre-installed, I want to say, blueberry ice cream switches from Kale. This is one of the major worldwide manufacturers, and they're coming out with these weirdo names. That's how popular it's gotten.
So my question. Go ahead, Elena.
I was going to just ask, are these names supposed to signify some kind of special edition, or very different take on switches?
If you're looking for a logic in the names that corresponds to their function or their feel, there is none. There used to be red, blue, brown, black, and they'd go from now there's no telling what it is.
It used to mean that blue was clicky, but we're through the looking glass.
Blueberry does not also mean clicky. Then I
means clicky.
I think the blueberry were tactile. Yeah.
If anything, it just pushes me to go get dessert right now.
I know, right? Yeah. And then you said boba switches, and I was like, okay, switches, well, I need boba. Okay.
So my question is: has anybody switched the switches in their mouse before?
No, we actually have a rat. Those rat mice were those had replaceable switch, or maybe it's just the panels on it. Maybe I have it wrong, but I thought those rat ones, the RATT mice.
I had a switch die in a Logitech mouse a couple years ago and got a Kale switch. Ordered Kale switches from the internet and dismantled it, desoldered them, put them back in. I was able to get quieter switches in the mouse too, which is pretty exciting. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
It's the next frontier. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Weird. Okay. Well, okay. So Will, I know we talked about you just starting on. We need to talk maybe we should do a live stream where we build you help me build a custom keyboard together.
I would love to do that. That would be fabulous.
I promised Hipio Tech by the next time I saw him at some sort of event, I will have built my first custom keyboard. So I do want to do it. But yeah, maybe I'll make work pay for it first, and then there you go.
Adam just
Cha-ching.
not caring what the accounting side hears publicly.
Nah.
Look, it's
They're
past
not
the 30-minute
listening.
mark. They're not listening anymore. We're totally safe at this point.
Yeah, we're in the dark hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Are
Anything
we
else?
moving on? I have a question for the
yeah.
experienced keyboard folks in this chat,
Mhm.
which is, without buying keycap sets for every single type, how am I supposed to figure out the differences between like the curved and the angle and all that? Like, I've looked at so many charts from the side view, and I'm like, do I like that better than the other one? I don't know.
Good question.
My recommendation is to go on
Buy a tester.
AliExpress, because they do have the knockoffs, and the full sets can be very expensive, but the knockoffs are not that bad. You can find them for anywhere from like 30 to 50 for a set, and you can throw them on your keyboard and decide if you like them. My favorite is called DSA, from a company called Signature Plastics that just went out of business, so I'm kind of bummed there, but there are plenty of people that copy that design, so it's possible to do it on something approaching what you might call the budget.
Well,
$30 per try does sound kind of expensive, though.
Yeah. Also, we have a couple people in the chat saying that you should just visit a keyboard meetup, and now, yeah, I had no.
That's a great recommendation.
Wow,
Yeah.
I had no
Are those a
idea.
Yeah, they are.
There used to be a
Ask
guy
if you
that brought a bunch of keyboards to Alameda Swap Meet in the like a long time
really?
ago, like 10 years ago
Yeah.
now.
I haven't seen that. Yeah.
You could buy Model 80s from him back in the day, so he was that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, if
Adam's
you're
mind's blown
interested,
right now.
Yeah.
He's like,
And
I suggest you Google like keyboard meetup Reddit, and they'll just have a list of the upcoming ones. Odds are pretty good there will be one in a major city near you within 3 or 4 months.
And now
I'm learning so much today.
Yeah, and my mind's going to the worst place where it's just like in this like seedy little like meeting room
No,
at a
It's gonna be
VFW or
VFW
something.
or something. It'll be perfectly
they're
nice.
great
Yeah,
fun.
and you walk in, you're like, hey, what are you here for? I'm here for the keyboard meetup. And they're like, what's the secret password? And I say Fidelio or whatever.
QWERTY, man. It's QWERTY.
QWERTY. Oh no.
Well,
No.
No, people have been doing these for years. There are people who are very experienced with it. They have door prizes, they have stickers, they have T-shirts. It's a lot of fun.
T-shirts. Wow.
All right, so Clay says a video idea. PCWorld should host our own keyboard meetup. That would be hilarious if somebody like us, unless we fly you out, we got a bunch of like noobs sitting around being like, "Hey, we're hosting our own keyboard meetup."
No,
Is that
that's
you
You guys are in San
brilliant,
Francisco.
though.
You will have
Instead of-
hundreds
I'll
of
have them
people.
come to us.
No, that's what I mean.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
brilliant. You don't.
okay.
We don't have to go out to find people that just come to us.
Yeah, well, you just come in. You come in with like a bunch of Dell and HP keyboards that shipped with the computers, and you're like, "Look, guys, we got them all. We got a compact over here. We got an e-machines. Yeah, Gateway.
Kensington vintage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Now I'm on board because we have tossed around the ideas of like full nerd meetups or something,
Somebody.
but yeah, that'd be
I-
hilarious.
First thing would be
Call it
keyboards.
KeyCon. I love this.
Keycon, yes.
I think that might be a thing
Come on,
already.
2020.
Oh, I'm sure
Probably.
that's a thing. I'm sure that's a thing. There's no way that's not.
Look, I have a stack of Natural Keyboard Pros from the old Microsoft ones in the garage. I'll bring in the classics.
All right. Yeah. Maybe I'll find a CD place for our own place to rent out. We'll just
Stop
put
calling it CD. They're very
Yeah.
nice meetups.
I'm sure they are. But then you get the waifu boards in, and you're like, why'd you have to bring that? Come on. Anyway.
I don't think I've ever seen anything even remotely objectionable at one of these, and I've been to like half a dozen.
All right, well.
Wow, you're way deeper than I am, Mike.
Also,
We need photos next time,
you were
Mike.
probably not looking in the right places.
Yeah.
Anyway,
There's always a
yeah.
He's
catcher.
looking for seediness. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm going to do this in Oakland.
Yeah. All right, we need to go. I'm not hating on waifu boards. I've been looking for waifu parts, PC parts, but I'm just saying.
Hey, I wrote an editorial a couple of weeks ago that's like, we need more anime girl graphics card, so I guess I have no room to complain.
Look, I just want dragons on my graphics card. Okay, that's all I'm looking for.
Okay, we need to move on. We got viewer Q&A that we need to get to. It is staring me right in the face. If you have a question, get it in the chat right now at PCWorld. It's kind of the best way for us to see it live. If you're watching or listening to this later, then head over to the link in the description to our fine folks over on Discord. We've got a channel in there for questions that hopefully we'll get to on the show. You can drop it in at any point. We do have a couple super chats I want to get to before we get any further. The first one is from a friend of the show, Skeet Sayer, gave us $5 Canadian. Thank you so much. Said, I have a Logitech G510. What keyboard would I replace it with? I don't know what that keyboard is, so can anyone give recommendations?
I'm looking up right now.
You're looking it up right now.
I'm guessing that's a full-size gaming keyboard from maybe like 5 or 8 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the one with a little screen on top.
Oh, it's got an LCD panel.
Yeah.
Oh, that is actually coming back into style for some of the gaming keyboards. I believe that the Asus, I want to say it starts with an A. We have a review on PCWorld that has that LCD screen up in the top corner. Steel Series also makes a couple of those, and there's a few other like that. If you're just looking for a gaming board that does that with a little option to show stuff on a tiny screen, which does not at all appeal to me, but hey, you have fun with it. Asus and Steel Series both have those models.
The best thing about that keyboard is it had the roller for the volume control.
Rollers are nice.
Like a big flat roller. I love a knob or a roller.
Yeah. Okay. Bring that keyboard to our meetup, our first official PCWorld meetup.
There you go. Well, someone's trying to sell that on eBay for $400. Wow.
There you go. All right. And Zoidwrath, friend of the show, Zoidwrath gave us $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Not a question. Just said, starting a fund to get Elena a Stream Deck to put sound bites on for future shows.
Yay! Thank you.
For some live grunt birthday party,
Yes.
then we'll get demonetized immediately.
Yay!
Yay! Oh God, yeah. I didn't even get into the whole like keyboard cable thing. I don't want to go there. We're not going backwards. We're going forwards. We're pressing forward. I'm gonna go with some questions over on Discord. This is topical. This is something I want to talk about, especially we got some fellow console people in here. Friend of the show, Liquid R says, with the flurry of rumors that Microsoft may be bringing some of Xbox's biggest exclusives, such as Starfield and Gears of War, along with others, to the PlayStation, do we feel that speaks to anything on the health of the PC gaming market? Or is PC gaming's health just fine and Microsoft needs to feed the beast for shareholders, whatever? As part of that is the rumors of maybe getting out of console hardware altogether. Elena, I'm going to toss this to you first as the official Xbox spokesperson of the group. How would you feel if Microsoft left the hardware game?
How do I feel?
How do you feel about it?
Personally feel?
Yeah, personally feel about
it. Personally, I think it would be a little bit sad and almost anticlimactic, given how they fought really hard to get into the console scene. It was so dominated by the Japanese companies, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" And they made it happen, and they survived. What at this point, 2 decades as a brand. So to me, it feels a little anticlimactic, where they're just like, the money's in software. Peace out, y'all.
We'll see. And once again, these are all rumors. There's no official statement. Nothing. Who knows what it could actually mean for the hardware division? It's just rumors right now. But
yeah,
they're going to be Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, is actually doing a talk or something tomorrow to come out and clarify about all this stuff. So everyone's getting way too worked up, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more Xbox stuff on other platforms, especially via Game Pass. But personally, I would expect to see it more like how PlayStation does with the PC right now. So I wouldn't expect to see Starfield on day one on PlayStation. I'd expect it to come out a year or two later, much like how Gears of War and Ryzen Zero Dawn and stuff did on the PC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stuff like Hi-Fi Rush and stuff I could see getting ported over. But I don't think they're getting out of the hardware space, and I don't think they would shoot themselves in the foot that hard.
What does anybody know what kicked off this current round of like Xbox people being upset and sad?
Someone was doing data mining of Hi-Fi Rush, and they found Switch and PlayStation colored achievements and stuff in there. So it sounds like that's getting announced for other platforms.
Yeah, well, and then I think a lot of people are taking the next logical step of like, oh, okay, well, if Microsoft's going to go all in on just releasing their games everywhere, why even have a console? And their consoles, I mean, they're in third place, and they always will be, at least behind one or both.
I don't think Sony and Nintendo are going to put Game Pass on their platforms, probably, or they are going to allow them to do that. Right?
I mean, Microsoft has said they wish they could, right? I mean, and I think that's separate from the hardware thing. Like, I mean, yeah, like this doesn't surprise me at all that they want to get their games in other places. Like,
well, but I mean, they're also probably not going to allow xCloud in the same way that Apple doesn't really allow an xCloud dedicated client. You have to run it through Edge as a web application. So if you look at how game sales work, right, on SKUs that people can spend money for and aren't part of a subscription, there's an initial spike. If it's a live game, that grows over time. And if it's a traditional game, that spike fades to nothing over about 3 to 6 months, or virtually nothing. You get a long tail of sales. So if there's an opportunity for them to roll out these games after that initial spike on their platform where they don't have to pay anybody else a cut of the profit, it makes perfect sense for them to engage in those other platforms. Especially if like porting stuff from Xbox to PlayStation is pretty straightforward these days, since they're, I don't want to say essentially the same, but they're very, very similar hardware. The Switch is a little more complicated, and there's ongoing costs with a lot of that, because a lot of the high quality Xbox and PS5 ports to Switch are cloud based, like off Switch rendering basically, and there is an ongoing cost for that. But there's been a lot of games that have done that. There's cost structures for that are established. Clearly, the model works, or else people wouldn't continue to do it. 5 years later, after we saw the first ones of those. So like, I don't know. If anything, if I was an Xbox fan right now, the thing I would be worried about is the long-term impact of Game Pass. Because when I talk to my developer friends, I often hear, hey, we don't expect to sell anything on Xbox because people on Xbox are just subscribing to Game Pass and they don't pay $60 or $40 or $20 for standalone games anymore.
Yeah,
and I mean, I think people have jumped to a conclusion. They're thinking of Sega 20 years ago, where someone looked at the numbers and said, "Hey, we're not going to remain profitable selling hardware. We'll just be a game software company," and that's not the end of the world. I don't think Microsoft is there yet. Someone has done that calculation for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, it's not
and
like
they're looking at,
it's not like Microsoft's that weird of a company that, they have a track record of making decisions that you're like, huh? So, I think that's the other part of it. People are like, well, they could make this decision even though it would be weird.
And with the last 5 or 6 years, especially with them acquiring absolutely everyone they can leading up to Bethesda, Blizzard, Activision, I would say arguably they're much more of a software company than a hardware company when it comes to gaming. So let's say somebody does decide to throw the switch and said, hey, we're not making enough money off the Xbox hardware to justify continuing to build it. That doesn't mean the Xbox brand goes away. I would expect to see, if anything, a small, kind of like the NVIDIA Shield set-top box, said, hey, this is a tiny box for Game Pass, because that's what we want to sell consumers now. And at that point, Microsoft becomes the customer for publishers and for developers, and then Game Pass becomes the product for consumers, at least as far as Microsoft is concerned.
I think we're all looking too deeply into this. Everybody on the internet, Microsoft, I don't think is getting out of Xbox. I don't think this announcement's going to be as crazy as people think that it's going to be.
No, it'd be too soon for something like that. I think, though, that what we're talking about is conjecture for what the next generation is going to look like and what form that's going to be, just given the direction the company has been going in so far. And unfortunately for Microsoft, how deep of a hole got dug for them after the disastrous Xbox One launch, and how they packaged that. They haven't really recovered from it, and it only got worse with the generation that came after it, the Series X and S. So, I mean, I'm not predicting any near-term death for Xbox hardware, but I do think it is a valid conversational topic to consider, where are they going to go from here, especially as Mike just pointed out, they've been on such a huge spree of acquisitions and there's such a software emphasis for them. It wouldn't be surprising if they wound down the hardware side, but I also, like you, Brad, I also think that would be a very, very big statement, a very big move. It's not just something you casually throw off, because spinning it back up again probably would be a very big endeavor as well.
Or maybe they pull in Nintendo and say, hey, you know what? Instead of competing directly with Sony, let's just do something different. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, because within 3 or 4 years at the very latest, Sony's going to have a new console that's going to be gigantic and enormously powerful and equaling like some really good PC gaming specs of today. If you're Microsoft in 3 years, do you make the decision to make that investment in a similar kind of product? And I think right now, I would flip a coin as to whether they release something that tries to compete with Sony again, or goes all in on their software power, which they've been building up, and I would say building up very successfully.
So I think 3 or 4 years is really aggressive for new consoles. I think everybody's going to try to make these generations last as long as they can because of the upfront investment in the new hardware. I think players tend to look at the number of consoles sold on each side of the divide, where Nintendo is selling it 10 times as much as anybody else, and then Microsoft and Sony are fighting over the essential scraps, right? But the real important number for the economy of games and the way games are made is how many people, like, what's the attach rate of games per console purchased. And with Xbox, people are spending a lot of money on Game Pass and not much money on games. And with PlayStation, people are spending a lot of money on games. So that means if I'm a developer, I'm looking at who am I going to partner with. Is it Nintendo, which maybe they have because they've sold so many units, their attach rate is probably a disaster. Sony has a really nice attach rate right now, and mainly because they have a bunch of first-party games that aren't on their subscription service or weren't on a subscription service that didn't exist for a long time. I think they have a really big advantage over Microsoft in this kind of, like, in the battle for future titles, right? That's the thing we're talking about, because right now the publishing market is softer than it's ever been in my memory. Like, the mid-tier publishers have all been embraced by the Embracer Group and then either shut down or shrunk to the point that they can't they have no money to invest in mid-tier games. And of the 14,000 games that came out on Steam last year, 10,000 of them were kind of crappy, and of those other 4, the vast majority of those were in that kind of $5 to $20 million budget range that the mid-tier publishers live in. And right now, there aren't a lot of games signed for 2026, 27, 28 because nobody signed any deals last year, right? There were very, very few publisher deals, very, very few platform deals. The Game Pass deals have shrunk to the point that they're like, for a while, Microsoft would basically fund your low-end game, and that's not happening anymore. Epic's not doing those deals anymore. Like, what's happening to these studios that were expecting to come in and get Game Pass money or publisher money at the end of their production? And it's just not going to be there. And I think Microsoft and Sony are probably going to gobble up a bunch of those small and mid-sized studios, because you can buy probably 20 mid-sized studios for what one Activision costs, 20 or 30 mid-sized studios for one, maybe more than that. My math might be bad. $70,000 million. So you could probably buy 30, 35 mid-tier studios. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a real bad year. We had the best year for games in a long time last year. I think the next few years are going to be pretty sad.
Yeah. Also, the last little twist in this, and we kind of need to move on. The other part of this hanging in the balance is a lot of talk about getting away from publishing physical media. So, right, I wonder if Microsoft is more excited and willing to be like, forget physical discs, let's go all in on Game Pass, let's go all in digital. Where Sony still seems to at least be embracing you can get a digital version or a disc version kind of thing. Well, so.
I mean, Microsoft, there were reports that in the Microsoft layoffs last week that a lot of that was in the disc and physical media production side.
Yeah.
it's the way the market was going. Best Buy has cleared out all of their physical media space.
Right.
Like GameSpot is selling more squishimals than discs these days. I think they're not doing used media anymore. That's just market trend and them.
Yeah. Well, but I feel like Microsoft is better suited to embrace that feature rather than Sony.
Yeah, for sure. Just because of the markets that they play in. I mean, Japan is still huge on physical media. I don't see Sony making that kind of move anytime soon.
And at least Nintendo likes it too.
At least completely. Maybe more so in other territories.
Yeah.
But I don't see them making quite such of a dramatic move in that direction.
Okay.
Wait, can I insert a question real quick while you're looking?
Yep.
Because somebody asked on Discord, and I told them specifically to ask the question, but we haven't posed it yet. And Brad is here today, so I wanted to ask. I think it was Ivan, and I'm going to paraphrase a little because I don't see it immediately just scrolling through all the many wonderful questions you put in the Discord channel. Oh, here it is. So I guess this is mostly for Brad, but we can all take a turn answering this, which is, what's your stance on pre-ordering games? And if you're not okay with it, would you be okay if they were refundable?
In general, I don't pre-order stuff, period. I am a big believer in waiting for reviews to check stuff out. That said, especially those smaller and mid-tier developers like Will was just talking about, if it's a team that has a worthy track record, I will add them to my Steam wish list. Sometimes I'll pre-order stuff like that because it means so much to those smaller developers. So in those cases, I'll sometimes do that. But in general, especially for big AAA games, I never pre-order. Wait for reviews.
It's not like you're going to miss the disc now, right? Like there's no reason.
Yeah. Back in the day when discs were actually a thing, I used to get around the long lines because nobody knew they sold them at Toys R Us as well. So I used to just head over to Toys R Us to buy stuff.
Yeah, that was the same hack I would use.
Nice.
Well, the wish list thing is really important. Like this is the thing. If you see an indie game that you're even mildly interested in, the kindest thing you can do for those developers, and we're talking about teams that are like 4, 5, 10, maybe 20 on the outside people for the most part, is hit the wish list button on Steam, because Steam doesn't do pre-orders for anything but kind of really big games or follow-ups for indie folks. Those wish lists are what determine who gets carousel placement on the front page of Steam on their launch days. And that carousel placement is the difference between selling a few thousand copies and a few 100,000 copies in a lot of cases. So, the indie people, as somebody who just came from an indie studio, the goal with indie games isn't to make $1 billion. It's usually to make the next game. Like you want to sell enough copies that you get to make your game too. And hitting that wish list button expresses interest in a way that matters to Steam and matters to Valve and how they promote stuff on the front page of Steam. And it is I cannot overemphasize how important it is for indies.
Does that translate to the other platforms, or is that just a Steam thing?
If you have a lot of Steam wish lists and you are working on a Microsoft deal and you come in and you say, I have X 100,000 wish lists, which would be a very large number of wish lists, to be clear, then they will be more enthusiastic about your product probably than if you have 0 wish lists.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. I like that.
Learned something today.
Yeah. Somebody said it in the chat. For me, like if it's something like from a franchise or developer that I already know that I'm probably going to be interested in, like whatever, I'm fine pre-ordering something. Yeah.
Well, the thing with
it used to be me with. Go ahead,
Brad.
Will. Sorry.
Okay, so
go
ahead, Brad.
No, you go.
So real quick, so with pre-orders, nowadays they try to entice you with like add-ons and stuff like that. Like pre-order now and get like this, like legendary skin or like very limited. But I find like in the end, you'll get it eventually. Like like maybe months later they'll release it again, and it's like you can buy it later. It's like, do you really need the pre-order? Or for you guys, it's like, what will entice you guys to actually get? What offer would they have to make for you guys to do a pre-order?
Back in the day, I pre-ordered Halo 3 because I was going to buy that no matter what, and I came with that big badass physical helmet of the Master Chief.
The cat helmet.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But I used to pre-order games from Bethesda and BioWare because I've always been huge fans of both those firms, but both of them let me down with various releases. Not let me down, it just wasn't what I wanted. And so I just don't pre-order too much anymore.
I pre-ordered the original WoW Collector's Edition, and then they sent review code, and I didn't ever open it, so I sold it on eBay for a whole lot of money at some point. Ooh. The one I pre-ordered, not the one that I got sent as a review copy.
Nice.
Because it had some sort of special pet in it. People really love WoW pets, it turns out. So I don't regret that one. That one worked out okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that swayed me. Like if I was going to already pre-order something, I already kind of knew it. And so whatever they're offering wasn't going to sway me. I don't think, I can't think of a situation off the top of my head where I wasn't going to pre-order it, and then I was like, you know what? I'll get this thing, so I might as well pre-order. So, yeah.
Honestly, when you pre-order something, you get one of those level boost things or whatever. It often screws up the game, right? Like if you pre-order an Assassin's Creed thing and you get better weapons as a result of that, then it's going to make the first third of the game boring, which is not what I'm there for.
Yeah. Right. So.
I feel called out, Will.
No shame. I think all games, just to be clear, I'm 100% on team. All games should have the what is it? The What's Up game folks call it a baby ass baby mode, so you can just enjoy the story and hang out.
No,
but yeah,
I just meant that I sometimes like having those because it is amusing to me to have those options.
Yeah.
Well. And I'm 100% a sucker for the give me the stupidest skin. If it comes with a banana or hot dog costume for Kratos, I'll be first in line for your God of War pre-order. That's my.
Wait, that's why you love Fortnite so much, then? Huh?
That's why I love Fortnite. Yeah, that's why I play Fortnite.
Yeah.
Sean, Retro Sean reminded us, what about the refundable part of the question? So if it's refundable.
Yeah, what do we think about refunds? Because I know on Steam it's kind of a little hazy. What is it? Officially 2 hours, as long as you haven't played 2 hours of it or something. But then there's indie games that are under 2 hours, and somebody can abuse that and beat it and still turn it back.
Abuse that, you're just an ass.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, just watch it on YouTube.
You can already refund games. I mostly play on Steam, so you can already return games if you don't like them. Which I almost never done. I think I've only ever done it for one game. But I still would much rather have the $70 in my savings account getting me interest than in their savings account getting them interest.
I guess I always thought this was a really interesting question, especially coming from the console side, because pre-orders historically were a little bit different. So a lot of times you would just put down a $1 deposit to basically hold a copy for you, and that was the equivalent of pre-orders. And so that's why I never really understood why people were so vitriolic about pre-ordering. And then even for the games where you did put down the full $60 at that time, it's a physical copy. So as long as you don't break shrink wrap and you have second thoughts, again, it's fully returnable. So I think that's why this question was really interesting to me, because I felt like, as more of a console background person, getting the PC gamer perspective was very different to me, just because I've never really understood the debate over it because of these things on the console side.
Well, I mean, if you live someplace where you can't get good internet, or you have slow internet, it kind of
caps.
Or caps. Well, caps are different though. But if you live someplace with slow internet and you're talking about downloading a 50 gig game and you want to play it at 9:00 on the day it launches, then it used to be that the pre-order was the way to go, because then you could preload the game and it would just unlock. These days, I have gigabit Ethernet, gigabit fiber, and a fast CPU, and it's actually faster for me to wait to download it after it's unencrypted than to unencrypt it on the disk. And so I'm actually punished for doing the preload these days if I'm playing at that 9:00 hour.
Yeah,
it's a weird. I don't look. I don't have any beef with people who pre-order. That's you do you. Yeah. It's all fine.
Yeah. But back to the game stop thing. I was definitely one of those people who would go in and put $1 down to pre-order something to get the free item. I remember I did that with what was it? The Wind Waker.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah. Wow. So I remember I got that disc, the GameCube disc that had the dual what was it, Majora's Mask
Ocarina and Majora's?
Yeah. And so you put down $1, you get it.
Pre-order, yeah.
Yeah, and then I would always go in the next time and be like, "Oh, can I cancel my pre-order?"
You're that guy.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna say that.
Yeah. I was always that guy. Yeah.
Oh, Adam, you are just so open about.
I'm back out. This is terrible. I can't work under these. This is worse than. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
Shocking revelations.
Yeah. Anyway, well, yeah. Maybe that's why they went down. Maybe it was.
It's all because of Adam.
Me. Yeah. I got all those free
Adam.
pre-order bonuses, and they knew it. They can't stop me. I'm coming in. Okay. I'll admit this. I'll admit this as well. I used to rent from GameStop. So, and when I say renting, if you got a used game, you could return it within 7 days, no questions asked. So I'd get a used game, I'd beat it, and then I'd take it back, and then and be like,
"Are we out of the statute of limitations on that? Are you sure you want to talk about this?"
It's not even rent, you borrowed it.
And I would walk in, I would walk in, and they would see me, and they're like,
Look, this guy.
Sorry, this guy.
I'm old enough that when I would buy games in college in the mid 90s, you could take them back to Babbage's and EB if they sucked. So you would take a game home. I bought what was that Dennis Hopper game? Hell, Cyberpunk's thriller or something. I took that home. I loaded it up. I played it. I was like, this is truly awful. This is a really bad game. I loaded back up in the car, went back down to the Babbages. They were like, you opened it. I was like, it's a really bad game, dude. They were like, here's your $50 back. So,
So Onikaze in a YouTube chat said, Adam is why we can't have nice things.
Hey, I barely had any money, so I was just like, all right.
Yeah,
if this is
everyone
did
stuff
games,
like that when they were 15 to 25.
Instead of pirating, I was just abusing a system. Well, I guess that's
why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. I did find out too. The first couple times I did it, I would do it on the same transaction. So I'd return a game and then buy the next used game.
Going.
Yeah.
So you had a chain?
He's exploiting.
I had a chain, but then I found out the hard way that you can't extend that chain past 3. So the next time I brought it in, they were like, well, you already have this chain of returns. You can't return a third time. Not the same game, but you can't have a third transaction on the same one. And so every time I'd go in, I'd return it, complete that transaction, then go get the next used one and make that a separate transaction.
So what if you checked out like a really long game, like your Final Fantasy or something? Did you take it back? You didn't get it finished in the 7 days. You took it back and then you'd be like, hey, can I buy that exact copy again?
No, I'd get another one and then go back to the next one after that.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I would have done it, but
did you at least spread this over different stores so they couldn't immediately identify you as easily?
Listen, after I had done it like 2 times, I would see their face when I would walk in and be like, oh, it's this guy again. So I had 2 stores I would go to in the Pittsburgh area.
Him.
Yeah.
The social feedback didn't stop him.
In the spirit of confession, I have one for you.
Please.
Oh no!
I think this was my freshman or sophomore year in high school. I went into Best Buy, and this was just after the Dreamcast had been abandoned as a platform. They had 100 copies of NFL 2K1 for the Dreamcast. Oh, okay. And they were selling them for $1 a piece. Nice. And I'm like,
there's something there. Of them.
So I bought 1 copy. I took it into GameStop. They said they'll give you $0.25. I took it into Babbage's. They said they'll give you 50 cents. I took it into a local chain called Hastings that was only in Texas at the time. And they said, hey, $7.
Oh no!
I couldn't even drive at the time. Next time my parents went into town, I bought 100 copies of NFL 2K1. Over the next few weeks, I would go to different Hastings because they wouldn't let me pull in and sell all of them at once.
That would be hilarious. So if you walk in, they're like, "Excuse me, sir, why do you have 100 new copies of?"
I made $700 off of Dreamcast games that may never have been sold until the company went out of business.
You are responsible for the death of small business, Mike. That's the thing.
It's entirely possible that I am, because that store does not exist anymore.
Yeah. Good job.
Non-flying thing in the chat says it's capitalism.
Capitalism, baby.
Capitalism.
It's the glory of capitalism.
I don't have to endorse the system to participate.
Well, hey, you know what? I grant everyone here watching us get this podcast. Try to trade it into GameStop and get your full money's worth.
No.
GameStop's already alerted. It's like Adam on the blacklist now. Just,
man.
Don't let him in the door.
Adam behind the cash register. Do not serve.
Yeah. Oh man.
I'm surprised they didn't have a thing like that. Honestly.
Yeah. Hey, no, it was on the. I remember because the first time I read the receipt, it said that. It said it right on the receipt. You could return it within 7 days and no questions asked. So I was like, all right.
Because of my name, I used to get emails for a manager of a Central Florida Popeyes, like all the Popeyes chicken chains in Central Florida. Somebody put my email address in the send the reports here form.
Oh, nice.
And they had alerts occasionally that would go out about people that would come to Popeyes and then do things like intentionally spill hot beans on themselves and complain about burns to get free. Yeah, so Adam, you're on that. You're on the manager list for the Texas GameStop.
I'm not doing that. It was
right now.
Yeah,
he's not doing that.
Anyway, yeah,
he's retired.
Yeah, I'm retired. I get plenty of money now that I can dump into custom keyboards. So yeah.
This is not even a Wednesday podcast.
Yeah, not even a Wednesday podcast.
We're already doing Confession Tuesdays.
Yeah. Confession Tuesdays. There we go. It's a new segment. Confession Tuesdays.
Wacky Wednesdays. Confession Tuesdays.
Don't ask me about media play. I probably put that company out of business. Anyway, we need to wrap it up. Lots of good questions. We'll save it for next week. The last question I do have is from friend of the show, Milo Hayek. What's going on? Said, hey, do we have anything special planned for episode 300? Great question. Answer is no. I don't know. We should.
Not yet.
We should.
Not yet.
We should. We do not have anything planned yet. Thank you for asking, because I need to
peek behind the curtain. We normally plan these in a Slack channel like 5 hours before we go live. Yeah, it's like, hey, what are we talking about tomorrow?
Yeah, so episode 300, big episode. We should plan something. So I'll figure it out. I'll talk to Gordon too. So yeah. We'll figure it out. Anyway,
you should tell him you want to do a musical podcast and let me know what he says.
Yeah, well, he keeps wanting to do a music. Oh God, who's the person's over at? He used to work with you guys, and he's
Dan Emmerich.
Yes, Dan Emmerich.
Dan Cat. Yeah. He does Pellet Swap Ninja, and he did he and his wife and their partner did the Sgt. Pepper's, the Star Wars version of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band called Princess Leia's Stolen Death Star Plans, which is very good.
Yeah, Gordon has used AI to make a couple songs that he wants Dan to come sing. So he's over at Digital Eclipse, right?
Digital Eclipse, yeah. Dan's great. He was at OXM for a long time and GamePro before that.
Mm-hmm. Good guy. All right. Anyway, let's get out of here because I'm hungry. Maybe go find a brisket sandwich. Just kidding. No, not in San Francisco. If you want your fix of PC Talk, tune in next week for the Full Nerd. It'll be on a Tuesday. Probably just like this one. If you want to listen to us on the go or after hours, meaning not live, go to subscribe to us over on Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever you can point your RSS feed to. Hopefully we're on there. And every time you do, one of us gets to go visit a Buc-ee's. I want the whole crew to, we should do a live episode from Buc-ee's. I'm throwing it down. That's what we need to do. That's my goal.
Well, we said we're going to do a road trip.
Yeah,
so we should go all the way to Texas, from LA and then to Texas.
Okay, that's a much bigger road trip to include Texas as part of that. But yes, we should do an episode live from Buc-ee's. I need to get that happening. Anyway, what's the end of that? So I want to thank the people from who the full house we had here talking to us. Thank you, Brad, for joining us. Always good to have you.
No problem. Adios, Joe.
Elena, thank you for coming and humoring us with our commas.
So next time when we have a crew like this, I'm gonna need a beard so I actually fit in.
You should. Yeah. Yeah.
I am the lone one out.
Yeah.
And I need glasses.
Just get one of those Santa
I've been thinking
beards.
about this since the beginning of the show, and actually somebody in the chat actually just said that they requested a bearded Elena for next show.
No, for episode 300.
So I'm not the only
episode
one who had this
wear a
thought.
beard.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Mike. Also, you do some great work over on the website. I know you come on the show every once in a while, but everyone should go be reading Mike's articles over on the website. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, I'm actually the evil version of Mike. You can tell because I have the beard.
Oh, nice.
The good guy. He's the guy who does the keyboard reviews.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. And Will, thank you for joining us. You will be a regular guest on the podcast from now on. So
I'm excited. I'll be here next week.
Foreseeable future. So yeah, you'll be here in person. I'm excited to have you in person too. So good times. Oh no, for episode 300, should I shave and Elena grows a beard? I don't know if I can sign off on this one. We'll see.
Has the stream ever seen you without a beard, Adam?
I mean, the closest was the goatee for Halloween, but even then I didn't fully shave the sides. I just kind of. Anyway, oh yeah, mirror universe. We should have episode 300 be mirror universe. That would be hilarious.
But nobody wants the good versions of all of us, though. That's the
thing. Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you, Willis, for running the show. Take us out here.
All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. Man, I just after Adam's confession, I'm here thinking, who's gonna play Adam in the new Netflix biopic of the whole GameStop, trading fiasco. But let us know in the comments. Drop it in the comments or Discord. Let us know then that who should play Adam Patrick Murray. Okay. Thank you everyone. Have a good day. Bye.